The border continues to be a thorn in the president's side as tensions over just what to do about the surge of illegal migrants. NBC News reports that things have gotten to the point where Biden is considering using executive authority to blunt illegal immigration, to which conservative border journalist Julio Rosas responded, "Oh, he can do that."
Meanwhile, hopes of passing a bipartisan border deal seem to have died in the Senate as just 4 Republicans voted to advance the legislation. The bill's co-sponsor, James Langford, was joined by Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and Mitt Romney in voting yes. On the Democratic side, Senators Bob Mendez, Alex Padilla, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren bucked their party and voted no. A clearly annoyed Langford spoke on the floor of the Senate and revealed that a popular conservative commentator told Langford that if he tried to fix the border crisis during the presidential election, he would, quote, destroy him. Let's watch.
Some of them may have policy differences. Some of them have been very clear with me. They have political differences with the bill. They say it's the wrong time to solve the problem, or let the presidential election solve this problem. In fact, I had a popular commentator 4 weeks ago that I talked to that told me flat out, before they knew any of the contents of the bill, nothing was out at that point, that told me flat out, if you try to move a bill that solves the border crisis during this presidential year, I will do whatever I can to destroy you.
RFK Jr. also weighed in on the border bill, telling News Nation's Ali Bradley that he thought Republicans should put forward a clean border bill without any unrelated issues attached. Take a look.
I think that they ought to listen to the simple suggestions that are coming from the Border Patrol and from local law enforcement. And, you know, we talked to the sheriffs today, and the Border Patrol looks like they're going to oppose the bill because it doesn't change anything. And it's very clear what needs to be done. And it's very, very strange that it's demoralizing and disheartening that the political system is so broken that you can't get, that we can't just get a clean bill that says, here's what we're going to do. We're going to complete the infrastructure. We're going to start enforcing the laws that forbid people from coming across. And we're going to send everybody back. If you want to get asylum in this country, you come through a legal port. You don't come across illegally.
The migrant crisis also comes as some Americans are realizing that there are some very generous benefits being given to illegal migrants in some of America's largest cities. Some noted that New York City's plan to give the migrants prepaid cards for about $350 per month actually surpasses the amount given to SNAP recipients and services for veterans. This policy is very interesting. So New York City is implementing it, and Eric Adams is getting a wave of criticism about it, including from 50 Cent, the rapper. It's actually going to save the city money because they send meals to the migrants anyway. They have all these services for migrants, and actually just giving, if you're going to do that, I mean, again, I would probably oppose many of these services, and a lot of conservatives would too, but just giving people money is actually more affordable than like hiring a service to do meal delivery and all of that kind of thing.
But we have in this country an allergy to giving people money because everyone believes, look at how we characterized it, very generous services. Do you want to know what those very generous services are? What the migrants are being allotted is equivalent to $12.52 per card a day for food and baby supplies. That, to the extent that that figure is higher than the low end of the SNAP benefit that American residents of New York can get, is an indictment of the SNAP program, not the other way around. If you are a SNAP recipient, I'm sorry, I just closed this window out by accident. If you're a SNAP recipient at the lower end of the spectrum, that means your monthly gross income is $1,823 or less. That's an annual gross income of under $21,876. And for that, if you make that little money, you can get up to $291 in assistance. $291. So to the extent that I agree that it is a problem that low-income New Yorkers are getting so little, even less than migrants, it's because the social services themselves are already so minimal.
Well, it's other people's money, and I don't think other people should be forced to give this money to poor Americans or poor migrants or anyone else.
Yeah,
so
we know.
It's not.
How about Langford's admission that there is probably, what do you think, a Fox News host that threatened him with trying to ruin him if he tried to solve the migration crisis before the election?
Yeah, look, I think it's fair that a lot of Republicans have backed off this bill for the political calculation that Donald Trump wants them to back off it, because Trump and MAGA people believe it would be best for Trump's re-election. Trump's attempt to get a second term if the bill didn't pass. So maybe you could say they're doing it for the wrong reasons. That said, I also oppose $100 billion in new funding, the vast majority of it going to Ukraine and to Israel, a smaller portion of it being spent on border security that I don't know will actually even add up to very much. So maybe they're doing it for the wrong reasons, but I frankly agree with the policy.
Well, right, but there's many people, let's say like a Hannity type, who are perfectly enthusiastic about sending aid to Israel, and whose hang-up is very clearly not sending aid to Israel. It is the idea that resolving the border crisis, or at least funding policies that would prevent border crossings the way that so many conservatives and Democratic voters say that they want, would inure to the benefit of Joe Biden by stripping that line of attack from Donald Trump. So which is it? Do you actually think there's a crisis at the border and you think American safety is at risk? Or is this all a political gamble for you and you are misrepresenting the safety risks? Or you think the safety risks are real, but you think that Donald Trump winning is more important than the well-being and safety of Americans? I mean, this is what Republicans are going to have to own now. And if Democrats are able to land this right, they can really expose the extent to which this is a real political machination. Now, it would be easier if they had a substantive plan of addressing the border crisis themselves and had tried to do so earlier in Joe Biden's term instead of seeming to do it now also because it's a political liability.
Or we can just address the border crisis as RFK Jr. said there quite wisely. We can listen to the people on the ground, the local law enforcement, and we could just do that provision of the bill and drop the 5 times as much funding for foreign governments that probably most of the American people don't want or agree with to some extent, or at least have some skepticism about whether this is a good use of American taxpayer dollars. And we could all do that. But Democrats don't want that because what they really care about is the Ukraine funding. And they made that clear. And they were willing to actually violate all of their self-described border principles, immigration views, in order to get a massive new pile of money for the Zelensky government to keep fighting a war that now even our own military advisor expert type class say is basically hopeless.
And the Netanyahu government. Yeah, I think that's true. But it's also true that the bill that Democrats were willing to give to Republicans is a Republican bill. And if you have a clean bill, there is no incentive for Democrats to undermine their entire values and destroy the base. And by the way, implement policies which that experts say are not actually very well tailored to stopping the flow of immigration. All that for what? So it goes both ways. If you want a clean bill, you're not going to get the bill that you want as Republicans. And if you want the bill that you want as Republicans, you're going to have, for the sake of Democrats, who very much want funding for Ukraine and for Israel, to get that. Otherwise, we're just going to be in this limbo. And that's what it's looking like going into the election season. I did want to point out that the progressives who voted no, like Bernie Sanders, specifically said that they voted no because they think that Israel has a right to defend itself, but it does not have a right to indiscriminately kill Palestinians. And so he's making a very principled objection there on the basis of the humanitarian crisis in Palestine. Yeah,
well, I am not eager to spend $100 billion more given our debt situation and our financial house being totally out of whack, on anything, but especially, frankly, all 3 of these causes I'm deeply skeptical of. So, glad to see that politics wins again, and there's going to be no bipartisan border deal as far as I can tell. More Rising right after this.